Benz, when we hear the response from these types, they say, well, Antifa is decentralized. There's no network there. That's just a group of people organically fighting fascism. Is that true?
Not even in the slightest. Go to any one of these Antifa websites, although they're getting rarer and rarer as so many of them are starting to shut down right now to try to hide their own secrets. But they all have .org as their websites. The Portland Antifa site is a .org. The Torch Antifa site is a .org. The Seattle cell is a .org. Jack, what is org short for?
Well, that's short for organization, or specifically nonprofit organization.
Yes, these are organized organizations. This is not some ethereal, metaphysical idea. They are organized organizations, and they operate through a cluster cell network, which is the part and parcel of how we do influence operations abroad. And this kind of gets to the broader Antifa story. Antifa is an international network, and one way to understand it and to try to depoliticize it a little bit for a second here, there were very radical, right-wing, decentralized cluster cells of networks for political influence operations and brass knuckles, breaking up meetings, acts of domestic terrorism that were conducted in the 20th century under what's known today as Operation Gladio. This was a NATO network of stay-behind groups, paramilitary street militias in Italy, in Central and Eastern Europe. There were dozens of these cluster cells that were organized in a decentralized fashion, where it brought together basically captains of industry, government regulators, international aid organizations, and then violent political, at the time, right-wing anti-communist forces that were secretly working with the Central Intelligence Agency and NATO's political affairs units in order to nudge domestic politics country by country in the emerging soup of the democratic turbulence post-World War II from the 1940s to the early 1990s. And this was done because we were fighting a Cold War against international communism, and these stay-behind networks, which were licensed to do dirty work and were on the ground, in the streets, were essentially sanctioned by U.S. and NATO intelligence to do a Department of Dirty Tricks of violent activities, often, in order to stop the emergence of left-wing communism. I believe the best way to understand Antifa and its various connective tissues at the foundation level, at the nonprofit level, and at the U.S. government level is as a left-wing counter-populist faction organized with a very similar structure and for a very similar purpose that the right-wing anti-communist cluster cells were set up internationally during the Cold War. The difference is the American people have not known until just the past few years that this type of structure even existed, or that we were even in a kind of second Cold War against international Trumpism in the way that there was an initial Cold War against international communism.